All right, today we're going to do a little investigating. We're going to look into a mystery that I'm pretty sure we've all faced. Why on earth is it so hard to get an appointment with a doctor? We're going to follow the clues, starting with that simple phone call and go deep into the heart of our healthcare system.
You know that feeling, right? You're sick, you need to see a doctor, you pick up the phone, and the person on the other end says the next available appointment is in, like, 3 weeks. It's so common, it's maddening. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on why that keeps happening.
So here's the first major clue in our investigation. This number right here, 139,000. According to the Association of American Medical Colleges, that's the number of doctors the U.S. will be short by the year 2033. This isn't just some minor inconvenience, we're talking about a huge deficit.
Okay, so the obvious question is, why don't we just train more doctors? Seems simple enough, right? Well, to answer that, we have to look at the entire pipeline that creates new physicians. We need to find the bottleneck, the choke point.
At first glance, the path seems pretty clear. You go to medical school, then you do a residency, and then boom, you're a practicing doctor. But here's the twist. For a lot of aspiring doctors, the biggest hurdle isn't getting into med school. It's actually that second step, residency. That's the real bottleneck.
So, what exactly is a residency? Think of it as a mandatory apprenticeship. It's where new doctors, fresh with their MDs, get to do the real deal, hands-on work, but under supervision. But here's the absolute key. The number of residency spots is intentionally limited. And if you don't get a residency spot, you can't get a license to practice. End of the road.
So if these residency spots are the bottleneck, it begs the question, who's limiting them? To figure this out, we need to identify the gatekeepers.
And our investigation leads us right here to the American Medical Association. You've probably heard of them as the AMA. The source material we're looking at frames the AMA as a kind of powerful, modern-day guild. An organization that for a very long time has lobbied to control the supply of new doctors entering the field.
So how does this whole thing work? Well, according to our sources, the AMA has historically lobbied to put a cap on funding for residency positions. The motive behind it is pretty straightforward economics. If you limit the supply of doctors, the demand and the wages for the existing doctors stays high. And that action creates the bottleneck we've been talking about.
But it's not just about money. The story gets a whole lot more complicated when you look at it from the doctor's perspective. They're actually caught in something the source calls the prestige trap.
This shows you the two sides of the coin for physicians. On one hand, yes, you've got high income and a ton of professional prestige. But on the other hand, you have absolutely staggering student debt and incredibly high rates of burnout. So the very system that rewards them financially also places them under an immense, almost crushing amount of pressure.
You know, this quote from the source material just hits the nail on the head. It says doctors are both beneficiaries and victims of a high-debt, high-income prestige trap. They absolutely benefit from the high salaries that a limited supply of doctors helps ensure, but they also really suffer from the intense demands that come with it.
So we've got the bottleneck, we have the complex motivations, but what does all this actually mean for us, the patients? Let's take a look at the real-world consequences when the whole system is under this much strain.
This is pretty shocking when you see it laid out. Because there's a doctor shortage, physicians end up spending a staggering 60% of their day on what our source calls bureaucratic bloat and data entry. 60%! That leaves less than half their time to do the one thing they were trained for, actually taking care of patients.
And this brings us right back to where we started, to that frustrating phone call. The consequences of this bottleneck become crystal clear. Long wait times for us, rushed appointments when we finally get in, burnout for our doctors, and ultimately, less time for them to actually care for their patients.
So we've followed the clues. We've gone from long wait times to a massive doctor shortage, we've identified the residency bottleneck, and we've examined the complicated prestige trap that doctors are caught in. And it all leaves us with one final, pretty heavy question to think about. Who does a system like this truly serve?